Well, hi everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we're live on a Sunday afternoon, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with stress. And today, our topic is going to be about coping with our stress by learning to tell the truth just a little bit more than we have been doing in the past. And it's amazing what that will do to your stress levels, your frustration levels, and everything else, as you will find out. For those of you who don't know, Dear Mama Sal is a group of people who get together 3 times a week, and we share our lives with one another and hold each other's hands as we go through life. And what happens is, just by everybody's living their life, we learn so much because life just keeps on happening, doesn't it? It doesn't matter how much you think you've got it under control. As soon as you think you have, then something else happens. So before we get on to the topic today, just the usual birthdays, thoughts and prayers. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers go to President Carter, who I believe is now at home receiving hospice care. So what a great man who spent the majority of his life doing good work. And for that, I am certain we're all very grateful. Would Habitat for Humanity have happened without him? When you think about all these wonderful things that he has done, um, his memory certainly will be a blessing to me. Uh, Even though he was a one-term president, he never let that stop him from going ahead and doing wonderful things, using that leverage, if you like, the fact that he was who he was and that he had been president of the United States helped open a lot of doors for him that he used for very positive um, result. And so for that, truly, truly grateful. I'm going to be giving you some quotes today about hopefully finding ways about telling truth if you happen to be somebody who is ill. And when you think about it, do you tell the truth? So I don't know if any of you ever saw the movie called A Few Good Men with sort of Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. Two great actors on their own. And if you can imagine it, Tom Cruise was the lawyer, young upstart lawyer, and Jack Nicholson was a well decorated military man, lots of scrambled egg on his shoulders and everything. And Tom Cruise bites at Jack's character and says, "Tell the truth." And the wonderful thing was, you just see the change in Jack Nicholson's face with the anger of it, and he looks at him and he says, twice as bitingly, "You couldn't handle the truth." And I want to tell you that I don't know if you know this, but it wasn't the original line. The original line was to be, "You already have the truth." But Nicholson being Nicholson, he stayed in the moment. And You Couldn't Handle the Truth ended up being a movie icon one liner. And I love that story just for that alone. Sometimes, listening to your gut has created some of the best one liners. There's so many of them in history where you look at it and you go, boy, that was such a great, whoever did the script writing on that, that was a great thing to say. And you find out it wasn't the script writer at all, it was the actor in the moment, just changed and said something that they felt. Perhaps I will do a broadcast about some of those incredible one liners, and because I think that will be amusing. I think you all know that I had a mastectomy back in November, and since then I have been doing very well. However, last week or this this week, depending on whether you count Sunday as the last day of the week or the first, um, I had to start taking a dangerous drug. And the dangerous drug is to help kill off any estrogen in my body because the type of cancer that I had in my boob was one that feeds off estrogen. And they don't know for sure, they cannot be 100% sure that a cell or two didn't escape. And if because of that, for the next 5 years, I will be taking this highly toxic, dangerous drug. Now, I don't mind telling you that I was so scared of taking it that I sat and looked at it for a couple of hours before I took it. And I'll talk about that in a second. But I do want to tell you that one of the best things I've done for myself is to join a support group of women taking the same medication. And the reason why it's such a great gift to me is because my mentor, for example, I picked a mentor, and the first thing she said to me, without my even talking about sitting there watching that pill, she said, "I want to tell you on the first night, I just sat there and looked at that pill for the longest time before I took it." And I wrote to her and said, "Oh, you're not the only one, and either am I." However, what I did notice on this chat group, this forum, whatever you'd like to call it, is that uh, a lot of women were saying that the significant others in their lives, be it their husbands or their family or whatever, just didn't get it and didn't understand how much pain they were in, didn't understand how woozy they were feeling, didn't understand any of the symptoms that they were having. Now, you all know me a long time. And I kept reading this, how inconsiderate the loved ones were and everything else. Huh. And one question popped into my mind. If we don't tell the people around us the truth about what's going on and how we're feeling, how can we blame them for thinking we're fine? That's the message we keep saying, right? People say, "How are you doing?" "Oh, fine," when you're not. You see, people are not clairvoyant. They don't know what's going on inside you unless you tell them. So I actually called my new chat group. I called them out on it this week. You know I would. I mean, I'm certain you're just shaking your heads going, "Yeah, that would be so." And I just said to them, is it that your loved ones are inconsiderate, or have you been lying to them as a way of keeping the peace and good communication? And I'd like you to think about that. What has it done to the amount of support that you get? Has it limited the amount of support you get because people think you literally are fine because you never talk about anything else but being fine? You see, people are not clairvoyant. How many of you are relating to what I'm saying? Um, and I knew that it was pretty, uh, how can I say, bold of me, because I'm very new to the illness and I'm also very new to the group. But I am who I am, so let them get used to that starting right now. It'll be interesting to see. If you hear next week that I got thrown out of the group, you will know why. So I wonder if any of you relate to this fact that we punish people or even think badly of them for thinking we're fine when we're not. And to me, it was quite amusing. I used to fall into this trap a lot in relationships. How about you guys? Um, I wouldn't tell people the truth. I didn't want to burden them. Oh, there's a tape. We were talking about the tapes that play on Friday. I didn't want to burden them with my stuff. And then I noticed somebody else said to me, "Well, this was going on for me last week, but I didn't want to burden you with it." And I went, "Oh, so you don't trust me to be able to handle what I've got going on and be able to hear what's going on for you." Right? Because that's what it is, right? When you say I don't want to burden you with it, it means you don't think I can cope. Well, hello. I can cope with a whole lot more than a lot of people, and I don't mind it either. You know what I mean? It's just like, just because I've got stuff going on doesn't mean that I can't hear your stuff. It just means, hey, I got my own stuff going on right now. And if it's too much for me, then surely it's the responsibility is mine to say, "Hey, normally I can cope with all of this quite easily, but this week, because of whatever, I'm not handling that very well. So forgive me if I don't give you the usual sort of responses." quote I have here was, "She was always fighting a battle, but her smile would never tell you so." And if we can think of anybody, I always think of Jody and that sort of thing. So Jody says, "I'm guilty of sometimes not sharing enough information with my dearest friends about what's going on with my health. I didn't even realize it. And I guess it happens because I fear overwhelming them." Well, Jody, I'd like to say that as one of your friends, you may want to apologize to them, because the message definitely is, if you're doing that, and by the way, this wasn't directed at you, this was directed elsewhere this week, but feel free to wear the hat, honestly, which you just did. Um, you see, for me, this is like, we say these things. I don't want to burden them. Well, hello. Isn't that for them to decide? Now, I was pretty stunned back in the fall when I told a friend of mine of over 30 years I was going in for a biopsy, not knowing I would end up with a mastectomy. And they were just about to go on a big cruise halfway around the world and back again. And I said, "When I get the results, do you want me to update you?" All right. And his answer was, "No, only if it's good news." I want to tell you, I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned that he would say that. He didn't want to hear unless it was good news. But as the months have carried on and it's now February, I have revisited that comment quite a lot. And how many of you know that that was his truth? He literally didn't want to hear about bad stuff while he was on vacation, or probably any other time. And really, when you think about it, you have to admire that courage. Jody's saying, "I'm sorry, Sal. I will do better going forward." Yeah, you will do your best going forward, right? And just please don't shield things from me because you're sick. I'm sick too. And I'm pretty certain you don't want me to start covering that up. And if that is true, then that's a double standard. 2x4 over the head. Um, Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." So can you see that although what my friend said to me hurt me at the time, as I processed it, and it took me a long time to get to the bottom of that one, I realized he was just telling me the truth. And for that, I need to be thankful. So think about your life for a second. Think about the people that you care about and who care about you, and ask yourself, how many times do I not tell them the truth? Jody's saying to me, "I would never want you to keep anything from me." You're right. Yeah, I know I'm right. It's not because I'm super intelligent. I know you and I know me. And I think you'd be horrified if you thought I said to myself, "I better not tell Jody I'm not feeling great today because I might be overburdening her." So why is it okay for you to do that to me, but not for me to do it to you? Think about that. And by the way, is that an old tape that is playing? We talked about these tapes that play in our head. Who was it that said to you, "Don't tell people your stuff, you don't want to burden them"? Right? It's like, that's not a good tape in my view, but your choice. So do I understand why some people don't tell the truth to children? Yes. But I also remember being horrified as I grew up, how many times when I realized how many times my mother lied to me. How about you guys? Oh, interesting thing. Jody, awesome example. Jody's saying, "Yes, it's an old tape. This, I don't want to burden you." She said, "Perhaps I don't want to seem weak." Is that a perhaps or is it true? You don't want to seem weak, so you don't want to whine. I know you're not weak, Jody. I knew that the first week I met you. There's nothing weak about you. You are a survivor. You have overcome so many things and you deal with so many things every day. There is nothing weak about you. Right. And Jody is saying it's a truth. All right. I'm not a whiner in general. Exactly. So think about that. I'm not telling you to change, Jody. You know me better than that. What I'm saying is think about it. Just think about it. Think about what you're doing. You know, we had that discussion about drive carefully. Now I'm having a discussion about, yeah, I'm fine. um, so when we talk about coping, I'd want you to think for a second, if you will, about how many of you have a friend that you can tell the truth to. You know that one that you can tell the truth to? How does that feel when you can tell them the absolute truth and they don't judge you for it and they don't beat you over the head with it? Well, sometimes they do, I guess, two by four. But you know, it's like what I realized was that, you know, it's, yeah, Jody's saying it's a treasure to have that sort of a friend. So be that sort of friend as well. It's a two-way trade, not one way. I also realized that this whole new phase of my life, you know, people keep asking me, you know, my friends keep asking me, are you still feeling woozy? And I said, yes, it could be my new normal, but I'll keep letting you know. And then they don't want to hear that, right? So they will try and cover that up and saying, maybe it's only for the first couple of weeks. And I said, hey, don't get me wrong. I'll take woozy over upchucking any day of the week. You know, I said, you know, I may be a bit woozy, but I'm certainly very grateful. How about this one? Speak your truth, all right? Your health depends on it. Jody's saying, yeah, you know, having somebody you can tell the truth to is a safe space. And that means that we have been and will continue to be punished by people that you know, basically didn't know we shouldn't tell our truth to. But I'd like to suggest they might be few and far between rather than the majority. And again, the reason that you can't tell them the truth is because they have their issues about the truth, right? Their tapes are playing very loudly. My mummy taught me not to discuss things like this, so I never will. But they never asked the other side of it. How do you feel when people tell you their truth? Do you feel they're wusses, or do you feel very flattered that they consider you to be that much of a friend? Thought this was a good quote for us all to remember. Do not believe the things you tell yourself when you are sad and alone. And I would like to say that part of this whole process for me is a whole new level of learning. And you know that you're going to get to share that with me whether you want to or not. I definitely have less energy at the moment, and that's not particularly surprising. My body is trying to work out what a toxic, very toxic, dangerous agent is doing in my body, and it is trying to get rid of it because it knows it shouldn't be there. So your body automatically goes into defense mode. And it's tiring, people. It's exhausting. But like us as human beings, my body and this drug need to communicate to one another. You see, somehow or another, my drug needs to tell my body, you don't have to fight me. We're actually on the same side. You're trying to protect her from me, but I'm trying to protect her from something you didn't know about. And that's called cancer. And you didn't know it was in her body, but we now know it is. And I'm here to help kill off the things that cancer likes to eat up. we're going to take away the deli bar from that particular cancer. And eventually I am hoping that my body and my pill will communicate well enough that they do realize they're both on the same side. And which case I may get some energy back. However, I am not telling people I'm fine. It's not what I'm doing. I just don't believe that that's a good thing for me to do. I really don't. I don't think it's a good thing for me to do, is to tell them I'm fine when I'm not. I think that's a lie. And I've worked very hard to get people around me who are people I can tell the truth to. That's what I've done over the last few years, is I've dropped a tremendous amount of people out of my life. And I have only kept those that I know I can tell the truth to, or to a large extent. I have a few that I can't tell the truth to yet, but I think I'm going to start. You see, I don't think that people want to be inconsiderate. I just think they're not educated. What about you guys? You got to think about that. Leave your comments, by the way, if you're watching this on the replay. Leave me your honest comments about what you feel. You see, one of the things I love about doing Dear Mama Sal is that I have a huge support group to help me through this journey. I also know that some of my viewers have been through this, or their version of this. By the way, I'd like to apologize to them, as I had no idea a week ago that once you were given the all clear, in fact 2 weeks ago, once you were given the all clear after a mastectomy, it did not mean that you were well. And I know I found it somewhat surprising when I said, am I now a cancer survivor? And I remember my surgeon saying yes and no. And I said yes and no. And they said, well, yes, we can prove that you do not have cancer in your boob anymore because we took the boob off. But we won't know for 5 years, until 5 years are up, whether you are cancer free. I didn't know I was going to be taking this hazardous pill, and I cannot tell you how difficult it was to look at a pill box that said dangerous drug, handle with extreme care. Have you ever taken a drug where it warns you to handle it with extreme care? And I was so grateful when my mentor said to me, without my having talked about this, said to me when she first went to take that first pill, that she sat and looked at it for some hours before she actually swallowed it. And I wrote back to her and I said, you and I are going to get on really well. Because I also sat and looked at it for many hours before I actually popped it in my mouth. So the reason I want to apologize to everybody is, until you actually get there, you cannot understand what that feels like, to be over step 1, but now you're in phase 2. Jody knows what it's like. The rest of you who have been through this know what it's like. But does Jody know what it's like to take the hazardous pill? No, because she did a much more cruel, in a way, procedure, which is she had radiation, which was extremely painful to her. So you understand, it's different. They do different things for different folks depending on what level of cancer you may have or have had. So I look at it and go, it's all a big journey, isn't it? How many of you took the booster shots for COVID and are now reading horror stories about what some people have suffered because of taking that vaccine or the boosters? I would like you to remember that no drug is safe, and that there will always be horror stories about different drugs. And I think at the time of the pandemic, you will remember me saying we won't know for about 5 years how dangerous the vaccines really are. It'll take 5 years to really show itself. But you have to decide, do you want to take the risk of COVID or and maybe die, as we were likely to do right at the beginning, or do you want to stay safe? And those of us who were compromised in some way, be it through age or illness or general things, decided it was safer, catch 22, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It was safer for us to take the pill, the boosters, than it was not to. Why did we think that? Everybody told us that, and we believe them. Think about that. And where did we learn it? Through media, be it television or social media or whatever. And we actually laughed at people who told us it could be very dangerous. But we could have been wrong. But breathe, because again, remember, every drug has some people that it has terrible side effects for. There's always going to be a risk. I believe that the majority of people will not be negatively affected, and the ones that are going to be negatively affected probably already have been. I don't know that for sure. I thought this was a quote worth thinking about. It says, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are nevertheless never weaknesses. Hi, Beth. Good to see you, and happy birthday for the twins on Friday, I think it was. So, there is a very subtle difference between being a whining Winnie and telling the truth. And I believe it's how you talk about it. I'm not going to be lying to myself either, by the way. If I need rest, I'm going to take it, because my body is going to need more rest to be able to have time to communicate with this drug. So, do I have the perfect excuse to not do anything? Sure. As does Beth with all her illnesses, as does Jody with her stuff going on, as does Erin with her stuff. I can name so many. What about Kimmy? Um, and so I have the perfect excuse if I want it. But the question is, am I going to take that perfect excuse and be a victim to it? Or am I going to do the best I can and let go of the fact that I may need to go more slowly, even more slowly than I have been? Beth is giving an update on her husband, Charles. He went on no carb and no sugar. He was 325 pounds, and today he's 225 pounds. When did he start that? Yeah, give him a hug from me and tell him I am so proud of him as well. That's a lot of really good choices that he decided to take. So you will know that on Friday, I chose not to do 2 broadcasts. Why? Because I knew how much the first broadcast took out of me when I was already feeling pretty weak. And I thought, why would I do that to myself a second time? Why don't I give myself time to regroup? Because you see, a broadcast isn't just standing here and talking with you. A broadcast takes planning, takes research, takes time, takes effort. And I had already done a lot of the research for the Friday evening broadcast, but even so, I just went, standing up for the next 2 hours, for another 2 hours. I don't think is in my ballpark today. And so I needed to cancel the broadcast and look after me. And I'm certain you all understood that. Matt Haig said mental health problems don't define who you are. They are something you experience. You walk in the rain and you feel the rain, but you are not the rain. Yeah, Beth is saying that she, of course, has been working on the opposite, which is putting on weight. She says she's gained 12 pounds and she's back up to 120 pounds. She chooses to be healthy. So here I am. As I wrote this particular broadcast, I realized that I was smiling. You see, I was happy to tell you my truth. It didn't worry me. Oh, well, some people judge me, of course. Yeah, they're out there, the people. They're not my people. They're just the people. Right? They're people who don't understand yet, but they will. And then they will maybe seek forgiveness. I'm actually so proud of myself for doing the best I can. I am proud of myself for doing the best I can and not using the ultimate excuse. Think about that. I'm happy. I can still function. Yay. From all the symptoms that I read, that were going to happen to me, um, I assure you, I didn't think I would be functioning very well. I am so grateful to have the support. How could I do this without support? I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm overjoyed that I can still move stuff away from the camera's line of sight, for example. I didn't have to tidy up the whole kitchen. I just needed to tidy up what you guys can see. You see, I think that's called a coping mechanism. And the good news is I moved very little away. A couple of bits over there. But all I had to do is to make sure that the countertops looked clear to you, and that would be fine. I've got the rest of the week to do the rest of it. So how many of you understand this cutting yourself a little bit of slack, but not too much? However, I have a tape that I know plays which says I'm being lazy. That I could have done the second broadcast on Friday. Yes, but at what price? And it was a price I was not prepared to pay. And Kimmy, seeing as you're here, I can just imagine the fear and terror that you went through the night before they did the open heart surgery, or the surgery that where they put in the pacemaker and connected it. I mean, none of us will really understand that fear unless we experience it. But I think I'm closer to understanding it today than I was before. And because I thought I was over this illness and found out, no, I'm just in stage 1. So when we realize life just keeps adding, right? It doesn't take away stuff, it keeps adding. Once you've got over this step, it adds a new one. And like everything in life, we may not particularly want the next one. We had enough problems with the one before. But it is what it is. And so from that perspective, we need to learn a great deal of grace. We need to be able to forgive ourselves as well as other people. How many of you agree that a child's mental health is just as important as their physical health and deserves the same quality of support? And how many of you agree that it's easier to fall victim to things than to overcome them? It is easier to fall victim to things than to overcome them. It is said that emotional pain is not something that should be hidden away and never spoken about. There is truth in your pain and there is growth in your pain, but only if it's brought out into the open. You see, if we could tell the truth more often, we probably wouldn't end up in psychiatric care, right? We wouldn't end up in therapy if we could tell the truth more often. Yeah, Kimmy's saying about her pacemaker thing. She's saying, yes, I had to turn my thoughts off, especially when I got to the hospital and I filled out the paperwork. Then the surgery room, no turning back. Oh yeah, I quite agree, Kimmy. Funny enough, as scared as I was when I got to the surgery room, because you never know if you're going to wake up again, right, Kimmy? As scared as I was of that, I want to tell you, looking at that pill with that hazardous warning on it, this is a dangerous pill, handled with great care. And I'm going, why would you put something that has that sort of warning into your body? And I could almost, feel Benji around me going, that's a really dangerous drug. I said, yeah, they told me that. It's on the label. So, you got a choice whether to take it or not. But obviously, for me, not taking it, I feared the results of not taking it more than the results of taking it. And Kimmy, how long ago is it since you had the pacemaker put in? And are you glad to still be alive? All right, so Beth is saying it keeps adding because of reason. Maybe you have this illness, having this illness will help you with, and others with your platform. Ah, so cute. She says you rock everything you face. Well, that's exactly what I've been saying to people is obviously I'm on a whole new journey of learning. And that means that whether they want to or not, my viewers are about to have a whole new journey of learning as well. You see, I've learned this week, for example, that going out and raking a few leaves makes my environment a little tidier. I didn't have to rake them all. But I did get some fresh air and I did feel better for it. You see, there is hope. John Green said this. There is hope, even when your brain tells you there isn't. I want to talk to you a little bit about Jodi's recent journey. You will remember a few weeks back, Jodi got up from her um, reclining chair and didn't realize it until it was too late, but her one foot wasn't working anymore. And because of that, because she expected it to work, she was on the floor having fallen before she realized it. And then terrified. Why didn't my foot work? And I'm pretty certain in that moment, she probably was in denial. No, I must have imagined that. I must have tripped on something. And then there would be the anger. What? You mean I got to cope with this as well as everything else? And then there would have been that terrible time of sadness. And then the old Jodi kicked in. Not old Jodi. The Jodi that said, okay, this might go on a while. Let me do the best I can here. And so she did some research and she found out that this could be temporary. But on the other hand, it might not. Now, I want to give you a demonstration of what has happened to her. All right. I'm going to walk to where the stove is just to show you that's walking, right? So, but if your one foot doesn't work, I'm going to get back a bit so I can show you. If your one foot doesn't work, in order to move, You can't lift this foot, so you have to drag it. And because nothing is working, it's a dead weight. So can you imagine that now she's going to find out she's got a whole lot of muscles in her inner groin area that she hasn't used before that are going to be screaming at her as well, going, what are you doing? But being Jody, she said, because I know this might carry on for a while, I want to be as independent as possible, even though I can't do some things now, again, which made her needy. And Jody does not like being needy. So one of the things she got was a foot strap. And Jody, there was I'm not going to discuss what you discussed with me today about your new revelation about having that. But what I'm wondering about is, are you using the foot strap for more than just trying to, let me explain to you why she wanted the foot strap, and then I'll ask the question. She wanted it because she actually can shower by sitting on a shower bench that then shifts across into the bathtub. And that requires that her legs get up and over the bathtub and in, so that she's sitting with her feet in the bathtub. So what she needed was this strap to be able to lift that, I'm going to call it the dead leg, that non-responsive leg out of the bathtub by herself, which she can now do, which is a great step forward. But what I'm wondering, Jody, is why are you not using it for other things, like lifting your foot up to get into other things? Because I have seen that people use that strap to put socks on. I have seen people use that strap to put their clothes on. In other words, get their leg inside the pants or something. So think about that. It's a more useful tool than maybe you're using it for at the moment, but I could be wrong. How about this one? Pray for those who are in denial, and pray for those who lie for attention. You see, I believe that by lying, we actually cut off a lot of attention that we justly deserve. By pretending you're fine, people treat you like you're fine and they don't come to help you as much. But when they know you're struggling, they are more compassionate of you. Yeah, Kimmy's saying the same thing. Jody, I feel the same way. I want to be independent. And I'm pretty sure that you are to a very large extent. John Wanamaker said, people who cannot find time for recreation are obliged sooner or later to find time for illness. I keep thinking back to that moment where Jody was able to lift that leg out of the bathtub with the strap, not the way she wanted to do it, but does it work? Yes. Can you imagine the joy she felt in that moment? That she had overcome a major obstacle and she had brought herself back a level of independence that she didn't have when she got into that tub. And so Gabby Bernstein said, give yourself permission to slow down. Remember my favorite quote from my monk: smile, go slowly. And it starts with breathe, smile, go slowly. You see, Jody, in order for you to come up with that brilliant solution, you needed time. You needed to get into a place of reality where you knew this could last for a long time, or forever, or not. But the point was, did you want to make it possible to buy it? I know that you're on a very tight budget, so it wasn't something you could do easily, but it was something you had to do. It was no longer an easy choice. Right, Kimmy's saying her daughter was here and put strips of stuff on the floor so I won't slip and fall. Absolutely, Kimmy, right? And we don't like that. And maybe, you might find yourself tripping more on that stuff because some people will. So, it's like a damned if you do and damned if you don't. But keep doing the best you can. Oh, she put it on the stairs. That's a great idea. So I can imagine that the joy that Jody felt when she got that leg out of the bathtub using her strap, that it brought her to tears, I'm pretty sure, or very close to. You see, here's what I strongly believe. And I think you all know this. I don't believe there are any coincidences. I don't believe there are coincidences at all. I think those of us who've hit illness have found we've got friends we didn't know about. And some friends that just proved themselves to be the friends you always thought they were, and some that just didn't want to know. And that's okay. You see, the reason they don't want to know is they can't cope with the truth. We go back to that initial quote. They've got enough on their plates. They don't want to deal with your stuff as well. Does that make them not a good friend? Or does it make them people that just can't cope? You see, I do believe that life is constantly changing, and it is our job to do the best we can to adjust and cope with whatever it is that life is throwing at us. I don't think that I need to sit here and go, why me? I do all this good work. Why me? No, why not me? Why not me? And how many people know that, a number of people that want to blame it on the fact that I smoked, or, whatever it is that they want to blame it on. You see, you all know people who've never smoked in their lives that ended up with lung cancer. And I nowhere understood that, having having smoked, it was going to cause cancer in my boob. Lung cancer would sound more logical, but who knows? Maybe I have it in my lungs as well. As yet, they don't have a test you can take to find that out. But I do believe whatever it is that you are dealing with, you don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to lie about it. I am refusing to lie to make other people happier. I'm just finding better ways of saying things. I refuse to lie. I refuse to say I'm feeling fine if I'm not. Why would I affect my own mental health by lying? I'm not going to do that anymore. And, if you can't cope with my truth, then we probably won't be friends anymore. So people often say to me, and have done throughout my life, they say that famous thing, hi, how are you? And I cannot tell you how many times I've looked somebody straight in the eyes. Do you really want to know? Have you got 3 hours? You see, we say these things because we're taught to say them in social settings. And I'm amazed how many people, when I ask them point blank, do you really want to know? It could take 3 hours. They go, well, how about you give me the Reader's Digest version? And I go, okay. Are you sure you really want to know that one too? You see, I don't let people get away with that anymore. It's like, why would I tell you? And why do you need to know? You see, it's absolute BS, right? It's just stuff we say. You don't think about it. It's like walking, Jody. You don't think about it. You just presume you can walk until one day you can't. How many of you can see the humor in, do you really want to know? And of course, it depends on how you say it. I normally say it laughingly so that they don't feel too badly, but I'm amazed the reaction I get from people. And some of them are honest enough to say, well, quite honestly, not right now. I go, there you go, that's honest. So I'm working really hard to tell the truth nicely so that I don't affect my health in this, that I don't make myself more sick by trying to cover things up and pretend. I don't want to do that. You see, they may look at me strangely, but oh, they may think I didn't really need to hear that, TMI. Or and I'm going, well, if you didn't want to hear it, why did you ask? So when people ask me how am I say at the moment I'm a little tired because that's the truth. But you know, part of what I'm really tired of is these socially acceptable lies. The socially acceptable lies when we do these things where we don't actually mean them. You see, when people are asking me now, how do you feel? I said, pretty good. Somebody who's taking a hazardous drug that's got a black warning label on it, everything except the skull and crossbones, and tells you to be very, very careful about handling it. And if they're worried about you handling it on the outside, what the dickens do you think it's doing to my insides? And no wonder I'm feeling a bit tired. Other than that, I'm doing great. I'm really glad so far I have not had the violent nausea that they talked about. Mind you, I understand it could still come. And I'm really glad I haven't got the very serious bone ache. I do still have bone ache, but then I had that before I took the pill. You probably didn't know about that because I didn't tell you the truth on that. So here is my reality as I talk to you today. The bottom line is let's stop lying about how we feel. You see, we know it's okay to be angry. We've been meeting together for many, many years now. It's okay to be angry. And it's okay to be overwhelmed. And it's okay to be sad. And it's okay to be in pain. You see, you don't constantly have to lie about it. And sometimes I'm going to be saying to people, hey, I wish I could tell you otherwise, but right now I'm in quite a lot of pain. But I'm on good drugs. I'm going to go and take another one after this conversation, sort of thing. So will we, by telling the truth more often, lose more friends? Yeah, exactly, Beth. Beth's saying it's okay not to be okay. And Jody is saying a very important reminder. Thank you, Sal. Let's be honest with ourselves and others about how we're really doing. I think so because if we are, they will understand our pain better. They will understand our journey better. They will not presume just because you had the boob chopped off that you are now cancer free and that they're giving you this drug because they're not sure if you are. And this drug is killing stuff in your body. Kimmy's saying, what I'm worried about is if the ambulance comes, how are they going to get me out of the very narrow doorway and off a high porch? I think that way because of when my husband had his stroke. Yeah, you had experience. So that's a very good question to ask yourself. Now, do you think you are the first person to have had that problem? No. So you're saying, I presume that would be the fire department that does that. Would I be right in that, Kimmy? So here's what I'm thinking, Kimmy. I presume you asked me that question or you made that statement so that I could maybe give you some ideas. Would that be true? Because here's what I would do. If that was a genuine fear of mine, I would be going to visit or have a telephone conversation with the paramedics, the fire department paramedics. Yes, or sometimes it can be ambulance and fire sometimes. Yes. Okay. So I would make sure that both those people, you live in a small community, So you know where that ambulance is going to come from, and you know where that fire department is going to come from. And I would actually talk to them and say, just want to find out if there's anywhere on your database that you can put some really important information. And it's about if you ever get an emergency call from this household, that I live in a household and my staircase is only 36 inches wide. So you're not going to be able to bring a gurney up there. You are going to need to do something completely different. Could you make a note of that so you don't find out once you get here that you are prepared for that on the way? You see, that is what I would do. And then to make sure they got that message, I'd also send them an email, put it in writing, and confirm that today I spoke to Mrs. Bloggs or Joe Smith about my physical disability to be able to get down the stairs in an emergency. And, I would describe exactly what you want them to know. My staircase is very steep. Uh, it is only this wide. I would measure it to make sure you know exactly how wide it is at its most narrow place. And that I will probably need a chair rather than a gurney. They actually do have them. I don't know if you know that, Kimmy, but they have chairs that are like those chairs that they give people to get in on airplanes, right? It's narrower than most. All right, so, and the fact this is your doorway is only this wide, all very important. She's saying that we plan to make the doorway wider and get a ramp. Good idea, but how long will you talk about it and not do it? That's my question. Will you talk about it for so long that when you need it, it isn't done? So the bottom line on all this is by telling the truth, you can either get help, as Kimmy just did, or you can lose some friends. But I'd like to tell you there's an upside to this. The friends you will be left with are those you can tell your absolute truth to, and that's a rare, rare privilege. And I want you to remember how you feel when you can talk to somebody and tell them the absolute truth. I want to tell you, whenever Yvonne comes to visit, I nearly always end up in tears in some way. And the reason is because I can tell her the absolute truth. I do not need to sugarcoat anything. I do not need to pretend. I just need to tell her this is what's going on, good and bad, by the way. I can tell her how much I miss her and how much I miss being able to pop downstairs and talk to her, because that is true. Good. Kimmy's saying, I will talk to them. Yeah, maybe you don't need to change a darn thing. You just need to let them know this is the problem, and maybe ask them, how do they deal with that? You're not the first person that's had that problem. You're probably living in a house that was built many, many years ago. Would that be fair, Kimmy? Or apartment or whatever it is that was built a long time ago. They didn't, people, if you go to England, Kimmy, and you see all those very old houses from, these years and decades ago, a lot of those houses, the doors are only about 5'6", all right, or 6 foot, right? Because in those days, people didn't ever grow more than that. And they're narrow. So the building codes were different. They didn't have any. So I can assure you that they have dealt with people in older houses before. But I am pretty certain that I would ask them, how do you deal with that when you get a call to a house where you cannot take a gurney up the stairs? I'd like to know, so I can rest at night knowing you will still be able to help me. And if you're going to talk to them, I would definitely put it in writing as a follow-up so you're doubly sure that not only did they hear it, but secondly, that somebody else had to read it and maybe put a note on your file that way a second time. So here's the thing. I urge you to be more honest, because you're going to have two choices. Either be more honest and tell people exactly what's going on for you, but word it nicely so you don't make them sort of throw up and feel horrible or whatever. And have a sense of humor about it. I keep saying to people at the moment, I feel pretty woozy, but this may be my new norm. And so therefore I'm trying not to panic about it. So you have a choice to do that. Tell the truth, but tell it nicely in a way that doesn't, make them freak out. Or you can learn to cope with your lies better by not blaming others for their lack of understanding when you haven't bothered to tell them the truth. You see, it is so wrong of us to blame people for being inconsiderate when they don't know what's going on. I've got one friend of mine that gave me a mouthful of words because I hadn't cared about the fact she got sick. But guess what? Did she tell me? I realized it wasn't my stuff, it was hers. All right? She was just lashing out. But how am I meant to be clairvoyant? No. And I know that. So everybody has a choice here. Everybody that is listening now, and by the way, think about this one. How are you going to change how you talk to people you know could be lying to protect you or lying to make you feel better? All right? If you know somebody's going through what I'm going through, what do you know? They're not fine. Getting rid of a boob doesn't fix it. Do you think that Jody is fine when she is trying to walk to the washroom? Yeah. Like this. Keep thinking about that movie Quasimodo, Jody. So one of the things I said to her is, what if you put that strap around your leg? Can you not just lift your leg and that way and walk? It would take a bit of getting used to, but I'm pretty certain you could. It's just like, think about it. It's all about, we have to cope long enough to be able to work out how to do it. Jody's saying, I need the walker for stability. Absolutely. And now, of course, you know what's happening to my brain, Jody. You've known me so long. I'm going, okay, how would I do that if I still needed the walker for stability? Would I put the strap in front of the walker or behind it? I'd still use it. I would. Oh, I know what I would do. I don't know if it would work, but I definitely experiment with it. I'd actually almost tie that rope that you have, that line, to the walker and see, can you push your walker forward and at the same time pull the leg forward? I'd be doing a lot of experiments and I'd be laughing a lot doing it. Make sure Lionel's with you until you've worked out what works and what doesn't. So you've got, someone there to help you if you overbalance. But do you all understand now that this not telling the truth is your choice? Don't you dare blame others for not understanding the pain you're in or the way you're suffering or whatever if you are not able to tell them the truth because of some stupid tape that's playing in your head. And it's not about not being grateful. I link the two now. I tell the truth and make sure I'm grateful for it. Like, hey, I'm feeling really woozy, but it sure beats talking to that big white telephone that I thought I was going to be talking to for a lot. And then somebody said to me, it may still come. I said, yep, I am aware of that. which is why ginger is a major component of my diet now. So I hope this makes some sense to you and give you some food for thought. We all are going through tough times, and some of it's going to get a lot more tough. The trick is, can we adapt? Because the more we learn to adapt, the happier we're going to be. The more we learn, yeah, it's quite normal for me to be angry and all those other things, but that's just on the way to acceptance. And once I get to acceptance, I will change what I'm doing, because I can no longer do what I did yesterday. Doesn't mean I can't have a happy life. It means I have to adjust my life to be happy again. And if I don't adjust, I'm going to be victim to it, and I refuse point blank to be victim to it. So do you think I can live with the reality that maybe I can't do 2 broadcasts on a Friday anymore? I'll let you know. But I also know that it is really important for me right now, while my body is learning to fight this thing, and to communicate with it and tell it, hey, the drug needs to tell my body it's okay, I'm here and I'm on the same side. Who knows how long that conversation is going to take before they both understand. And again, have compassion for those friends of yours who don't understand what's going on. I've learned to adapt, I've swapped my Coke Zero for Coke Ginger Ale Zero. I lie, Schweppes ginger ale. Understand what I'm doing? That's a small swap, but I'm making sure that I get enough ginger into my body to help keep my stomach settled. I also know that this drug doesn't need to stay in my body that long, and it will leave through the usual channels. This could be awkward to talk about this politely. So just, if it's TMI, you got the warning. But what I know is I need to up my liquids every day. All right? Regardless of how much liquid I was having before, I need to increase it. Because the more I keep the fluids going and leaving my body, the quicker the toxins will leave my body before they damage anything else other than the cells they're meant to. And the same thing, I am making sure that every day I have, more fiber, more green vegetables, more green everything. I have prunes every day. All those things are going to keep my innards working properly. Yeah, that was quite polite, wasn't it? Yeah, way better than I thought I'd have to say. Because again, I am aware that those toxins will be contained through everything in my body. And that's really important. I can either be a victim to that, or I can go, hey, I know about that. I know about that, and I've read it. All right, and Jody's saying you're doing a lot of the right things. Great self-care. Well, Jody, I had a great teacher. Yeah, and something, Kimmy, I've doubled up on the number of prunes I eat. I now have prunes before my dinner and again after. It's like part of my regimen now. Before I eat my dinner, let me take a couple of prunes. And after I've had dessert, let me have a couple of prunes. And sometimes, even when I have that snack with which I take that dreaded pill that's doing so much good work inside my body, before I take that pill, you understand, I have another couple of prunes. And did you hear me correct about that dangerous pill? Because if I keep saying that without adding that is doing so much good in my body, I can create my own dis-ease. That's a disease, is dis-ease. I don't want to create more disease in my body. I want to create less. So I'm going to look at that pill and see it positively and say, thank you for being here. to kill off the estrogen so that any cancer cells will die of starvation. Thank you. And what if I see this pill as a blessing, not as a curse? And I'm going to meet new friends on the channel that I've joined. What are the side effects of the pill? How long have you got, Kimmy? There are about 3 pages of them. The top ones include, number 1, nausea. Number 2, I got to remember these now. Hang on a second. Nausea, bone aches. Jody always remembers the third. I can't remember what it is. Hang on a second. Anyway, join. Yeah. What's the other one, Jody? However, I have been doing a lot of research into it, and another one of the things that can happen is brain damage from it. In other words, it can kill off part of your hippocampus, I think. So if you're on it a long time, I'm going to be on it for 5 years. So, but there are so many side effects, Kimmy, that it would, scare the living daylights out of anybody, not just me. But tiredness, yes, fatigue is very high on that list. So, but again, do I want to use these things as more excuse? Do I want more pain? No, I don't want more pain than I've already got, but it could be coming. They say insomnia is an issue, and I already have that problem. So do I want to compound that? No. So I'm going to need to do even more to make sure I get enough good sleep. Yeah. I can either do the best I can or not. And so maybe I need to read more before I go to bed, right? To make sure my body is pretty darn tired before I go there, that I've slowed my thought pattern down. How many of you know I've got a mind that's always working on the next problem? And therefore, to slow it down is an issue. Yeah, and Jody's saying allowing yourself to rest when you need to is crucial. But Jody, in order to rest, I have to overcome a tape that plays that I'm lazy, right? And I also have to make sure this is not an excuse I'm using because I don't want to go into the back room and tidy something up there, part of my decluttering. And by the way, did I use this as an excuse this week not to declutter? No. I was so proud of myself. I went into that studio and I moved a whole lot of stuff out of there. I built a complete recycling unit, 3 bins that I did with those cubie things. And I made vertical cubies, and that I've now got 3 big recycling places. That'll eventually go out on my deck. But again, I am aware that what normally would take me a day may take me a week now. And Jody's saying you're not an excuse type of person ever. Yeah, Kimmy's saying same here. I tell my brain to stop thinking about everything at night. Yes, I have found that keeping notes is really important. But if you keep too many notes, you just overwhelm yourself. So there has to be a catch-22. I mean, there has to be a win-win there. I can write the notes, but I don't need to go through them all every day. So I am actually feeling pretty good, and my stress level, as you can probably hear, is pretty good. I already have melatonin that I take at night, Jody, but thank you for mentioning it. But the other thing is, when I get all these things happening, at least I've got a crowd of people that I can talk to who have taken the same drug and undoubtedly had many of the same problems. The interesting thing, Kimmy, and I said that on Friday, my pharmacist told me to double the vitamin D. They told me to take it up to 2,000 imperial units or whatever they call it, universal units. Anyway, whatever it is, 2,000 of those things, not 1,000. And so I did that immediately. Filled up my pill case and made sure I doubled up on that. International units. Thank you, Jody. Oh, that's another symptom. Yeah, losing your memory. It's going to get worse. On the other hand, on the good side, they say that it can help with Alzheimer's. And they do say that it can help with staving off dementia. So there are some good things about this pill, one of which being it may stop a reoccurrence of the cancer that I've got coming back and harming me in the next 5 years. That's pretty good news, isn't it? And do you think I can put up with a little bit of wooziness and maybe a few more aches and pains for that ability to know that that cannot come back? You see, that's what you have to think about. Do you want to say to yourself, imagine if I didn't take the pill and then 2 years from now I find out I've got a massive growth somewhere and it's the same sort of cancer that I had in my boob. And the reason that I have it is because I didn't take the pill to kill off the food that cancer works on. Do you think I'd regret it? But other people choose not to take the pill, and that's okay too. You can choose whether you want to fight this thing and how you want to fight it. It's your body. Nobody forces you. You get to choose. So again, for all of us that took the vaccine to kill the pandemic, might we have taken something that will do other harm to us? It's possible. But here is the thing. At the time, is it the best choice we had to stay alive? And for those of us with a lot of contraindications, a lot of us that had other underlying problems, it was a no-brainer. Take the boosters. Do what you can to stave off getting this virus. But will some people end up with complications? Yes, some will. It's a drug. All drugs have some indications that are not good for some people. But I would like to suggest, I don't think it's going to kill off half the people that took the booster. So that is the message. The bottom line is, don't let your lies cover up the love, care, and attention you could be getting from people who care about you. They know that they can't help you with a lot of these things, but at least they know you're in pain if you are. And maybe they can make you laugh a bit more. And maybe you will find out that some of them will tell you a bit more of the truth about their stuff. And you can even tell them the truth about telling the truth and say, I've decided to stop covering up this lot to be socially acceptable. I'm now know you well enough and I love you enough to tell you the truth. But promise me, if you can, that if I start to overwhelm you with my stuff, just let me know and I will tone it down. But I think there is a way of telling them without freaking them out. And that is that you just tell them in a very practical way, hey, I'm feeling a bit woozy, but it's way better than the alternative. Or, I'm feeling a bit woozy, but this may be the new norm for the next 5 years while I take this pill. But thank you for asking, because it shows me you care. You see, encourage them to keep asking you. It's important. And not only does it tell you that they care, but it also gives you an opportunity to tell you the truth. And I would check that. Is it okay if I keep telling you the truth rather than be socially acceptable? Let them choose which they want. And like that friend of mine who said, hey, I don't mind you telling me as long as it's good news. Try not to hate them for that. Not everybody can handle the truth. And that's what Jack Nicholson said. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. How many of you really want to know, some of the devastation that's been going on in the Ukraine? We get a lot of it, but we haven't seen the worst of it. Maybe we will over the coming years, but we won't see the worst of the brutality that has gone on. What about the 36,000 people that have died in the earthquake in Syria? How many of you really want to see those bodies? I don't think so. But do we need to be aware it's happening, and do we need to get a little bit of an inkling of how serious it really is? And do we now all go, I'm hoping like mad that they bring in some decent building codes in those countries so that this does not happen again? That would be a step in the right direction. And the same way as I believe, right now they are talking about bringing in different legislation to cover what's happening on Facebook and Twitter and everything else, to stop um, people being able to bully people online, especially teenagers. And I'm going, bring it on. Please make that happen. As a society, we need to not only have the joys of this incredible technology, but we also need to understand the price that we are paying for it. And it will get progressively worse. And we all thought, how many of you can think back? I'm not sure that many of you will necessarily. I remember when they first brought in the calculator. The hand calculator. I mean, whoever uses it by hand now. I do mine, online. But it's like when we first, and they said they were going to let students have the calculator in the classroom. I can remember the uproar, which is they'll never be able to add 2 and 2 together again. I mean, that is insane. Why would you allow them to take them into the classroom? And the answer was it will save them so much time. And saving time in the coming years is going to be more important than being able to do math in your head. So think about it as well. Okay. 20 years ago, this drug probably, I'll have to check that out to find out, but this drug probably wasn't even invented 20 years ago. Am I grateful for today's technology that they have such a pill? Am I grateful that they've done the research to find out that this particular cancer happens to have a diet? It doesn't like poutine, but it sure does like estrogen. Am I grateful for that technology that they found that out, that research was done and they were able to have people work on it and find out? And then am I grateful for the technology where people sat in labs and risked their lives by touching this stuff to find the right combination of nasties that would go gobble, 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 gobble on estrogen? Am I grateful for that? You bet I am. So you see, you look at it and you go, we can choose to be very angry, very upset. I am pretty certain that Kimmy, as scared as she was to have that pacemaker put in, that I am pretty certain there are days when she goes, but I'm very grateful that they found out that they could build such a thing. And sure, occasionally, Kimmy, one goes wrong. Not all of them, Kimmy. Just very occasionally. But when we read that, do we think it's going to be ours? Human nature. And so you look at it and go, don't think that being scared makes you a wuss. Don't think that being confused or not understanding it all makes you a wuss. Don't think for 1 second that feeling that your life as you've known it is going to change forever because you can't lift one leg is being a wuss. No, it is real. It is what you have happening to you, and it's what you're thinking, and therefore it's real. And all I'm saying is, I trust that you have enough emotional intelligence to go through that grieving and then deal with the reality as Jody did with her leg strap, and then continue to build on that knowledge as I have done, joining a support group of people taking exactly the same drug as I'm taking. Right, and Kimmy's saying her way of coping with it now is she prays that it doesn't eat up the battery too fast or go bad. Yeah. And you know that you've got to be hyper careful now when you go, if you ever go on into an airport or for something and you go through the scanners, right? You got to make them aware. I've got to be aware that I can't have my blood pressure or draw or blood taken from my right hand because this is where I lost the boob. It has to happen in my left hand. I now know that I've got to be hyper careful that everybody knows I'm taking this drug because it's not um, something that I need to take lightly, right? People need to know I'm taking this very dangerous drug. Why? To protect themselves. So, you look at it all and you go, choose to be grateful, choose not to lie as much, and choose to help everybody else learn. When we don't lie about what's going on, you get to teach other people. All right, Kimmy. Kimmy's going, and I love that. She said, I haven't set anything off yet, right? She hasn't set off any alarms or anything yet. But the other thing is, I think that some of them you don't go through because they could change the rhythm of your pacemaker. Am I correct in that? But there's also that thing. How do I know that thing isn't around? I don't know. That's what you do research for. That's what you join, focus groups for. That's what you get support on. Those are the questions you ask your doctor. And even if they roll their eyes because they're fed up with the questions, you are entitled to have the answers, and you are entitled to know how serious this is. And can I write to the manufacturer of my drug and ask straight up questions and ask for the answer to be in English, not in gobbledygook? Yep, I can do that too. So I'm not going to be victim to it. I'm going to keep learning new lessons because of it. Have I had to change my life this week? You bet. But am I still alive and telling the story? Yay. And can I still do broadcasts? Yay. And am I really just a happy camper with a little bit of fatigue and a little pain? Yep. But will that stop me? Not this week. Who knows what it will do next week? This is DearMamaSal saying thank you so much for being here. Work on not telling the same lies because you will not get anything but the same reaction from people. Jody's saying you make the best of every situation. I believe that's why I get given every situation, Jody. We can do this holding each other's hands. And I will need your support as much as you need mine. Sorry about that, guys. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, love you dearly. Big hug. Life will keep changing. New battles will face us every day. But we are survivors and we are people that don't quit easily. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for your help, Jody.